Good news for our favourite ground-dwelling parrot. The Kākāpō, once considered functionally extinct, is now expected to have its biggest breeding season on record, with all 84 breeding females in the population expected to lay eggs. Professor Jacqueline is the chair of the Kakapo Recovery Group, and she is with me now. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Why is it expected to be such a bumper breeding season for this rare and endangered bird?
Well, because the rimu is expected to produce its biggest crop in a long time, so the fruit is vital to the birds, and the early indications are that this will be the biggest production of fruit in a very long time.
So more of them breeding, but how often does that actually result in birds that go on to fly the nest, as it were?
Yeah, so there's a long road ahead of us. So the indications are good, but the birds have to boom, they have to mate, they have to lay the eggs, they have to get those chicks all the way through. So that's a long journey ahead of us. And, you know, so it's a little bit early to say exactly how many we think we'll have, but the signs are really great.
So if the Kakapo have full bellies, they're more likely to get it on and lay some eggs. But is that a long lead time? When are we actually likely to know how many eggs are laid?
Well, the eggs don't, the peak mating is sort of January, and the eggs start to be laid sort of from then on. So, you know, it's a few months yet. The interesting thing is the fruit isn't actually ripe and available to the birds until the chicks have hatched. So somehow the birds are predicting ahead of time. They know. They're smart. So we figure it out by counting the amount of fruit that's forming on the early bracts, but we don't know how the birds do it. But somehow they're predicting ahead as well.
And if they do result in birds that fly the nest and join the population, how much further away is that likely to get us from these birds being effectively on the brink of extinction?
Yeah, well, it could be huge. So we're at about 273 birds now, so I don't want to count my chicks before they've hatched.
Literally.
Literally. But, you know, it could be a good sizable chunk of birds entering the population. But, you know, we don't know that until September-ish 2026. So, as I said, long way to go. But given that back in 1995 there were only 51 birds, we're on the right direction, and this could be another substantive bump up in the population.
So it's taken us 30 years already. So this is a long-term project.
It's a very long-term project. That's partly because the Kākāpō are long-lived, and so they do everything slowly. The frequency of breeding and everything has got a long time. But the problem with those 51 birds is many of them were males, and they were old and they weren't breeding well. So it's been a long, slow burn, but we're hopeful that we're in the steep part of the increase, or just starting, yes.
What are the impacts of it being, I guess, limited genes in the pool if we went from just such a small number of birds?
Yeah, so we are really worried about that, and there's signs that there's issues for fertility, things like we're seeing sperm that are deformed, so double heads or double tails, not really a good thing. So that affects the breeding. It potentially also affects things like their ability to cope with disease, and that's a real worry for us too. So yeah, there are consequences, but you know, Jurassic Park isn't really a thing. So all we can really do at this stage is make them breed as fast as possible, and that might help overcome some of those genetic issues.
If you wanted to see one, where would you have to go?
Seeing them is always challenging because they're nocturnal. So even if you know a bird's there and it's way up a tree, you don't always get to see them. More likely to hear, it's possible, for instance, at Maungatautari, down in the Waikato region, there are some males there, so we're doing a bit of a trial there to see whether those males can boom. Possible that they might there. Otherwise, they're all on protected offshore islands at the moment.
Yeah, which is probably the best place for them, right?
Yeah.
As a flightless bird.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. Here's hoping it turns out to be that bumper crop of eggs and that we can indeed count them once they hatch. That is Professor Jacqueline Beggs from the Kākāpō Recovery Group.